It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games. Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
All right, joining us now, former athletic director at Brigham Young University, Tom Holmoe, kind enough to carve out a few moments for us. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing today?
We're good. I'm just trying to navigate life with Tim Lacombe, which is honestly really cool. I know he was down there for a long time with you, but it's great to have Timmy aboard here.
Get a lot of sleep at night. He's got a ball. He's a full ball of energy.
I've got ADHD, don't I, Tom? I'm always on the move.
I remember, Tim.
I'm looking at a picture of you right now in one of your cool hats when you're on the sideline, man. One of those Papa hats.
Oh, yeah.
That's when I knew you were serious.
Hats.
That's when I knew it was when you were serious, when it meant business, when you had one of those Kangols.
I'm a California boy, and, that snow and water and rain and cold on my head is not good. So
Never quite got used to it, huh?
I started with hats a long time ago, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. I love it. Hey, NFL draft coming up tonight, and I think a lot of people forget about the tremendous NFL career you had, obviously starting at BYU, going into the NFL, winning some Super Bowls as well. Do you remember what draft night was like for you as a player coming out of BYU?
Oh, yeah, I do. But, that story starts a little bit earlier than that. The year that I was eligible for the draft was the first year of the USFL draft.
Oh, okay.
And you remember that league back in the olden days, a long time ago. And I wasn't really even paying attention, and the phone rang at our apartment. My wife and I, we were just hanging around, and it was a person from the Boston Breakers of the USFL, and he said, "Tom, congratulations, we just picked you with like the fifth round." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm thinking, if I got picked in the fifth round of the USFL draft, what does that mean with the NFL draft? And so it was the Boston Breakers, and I just didn't know what to say. And he just said, "Way, we're so excited. We got a lot going on. We can't wait to get you back here. We'll have someone give you a call in the next day or so, and we'll work out everything. But get coach on the line. We talk a little bit. Love to have you. We'll see you soon." I never heard another word from them. I didn't get a letter. I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get one thing. So when the draft for the NFL came, I'm thinking, I'm not even going to get drafted. But fortunately, I got a call from the Niners, and the rest is history.
A lot of people remember the 49ers and the offense with Bill Walsh, but defensively, you guys wrecked some dudes, and it was really fun to watch the evolution of that defense that sometimes may have been overshadowed by some guy named Montana, but what was special about that defense?
Well, it was great getting overshadowed, and I'd do it 1,000 times. It was in football, you definitely have the offense and defense, and sometimes in some teams and organizations, they don't really blend well together. You also have the special teams, which, for all intents and purposes, that was a big part of my staying in the NFL was playing on the special teams. But we had a defensive leader named Ronnie Lott who it's just hard to explain how much he meant to the team. We had Joe and Jerry Rice and Roger Craig, and we had so many great players. But everyone on that team, when you got in that locker room, our motto was one heartbeat, and that's how it was. So when Joey was great, we were great. When Ronnie was great, the offense was great. And just to sit there and watch, and I remember this as clear as bell, and it came from being at BYU when McMahon played. Being on defense, I'd come off the field as fast as I could, get some water. Maybe the coach had something to say, but I'd want to watch McMahon play on offense. And that's how it was with the Niners. If you look at sideline photos, most of the defensive players. They didn't want to miss a thing watching Joe play.
Obviously, the catch stands in my mind as a Cowboys fan at the time. That was a little rough, but 1994, you were coaching the defensive backfield, and I'm just curious, being around the draft process as a coach in the NFL, what kind of input did you have, and did they draft a position player while you were there that you coached?
Tim, it's really different from what I expected. When I got the assignment to be the defensive back coach, I went in there, and one of the things they showed me on that first day that I really hadn't seen as a player was the draft room. And it's got this big wall and all the magnets and everybody. And so for the next, couple months, I just started studying all the DBs. And the 49ers did it a little bit different than other teams, but they had the coaches very much involved. So there were like 20 safeties and 20 corners that I had to be aware of. I had to know who they were, where their stance was, how I ranked them. And then about a month or so before the draft, you'd have to go into a room, and as a defensive back coach, I'd have to go toe-to-toe with the scout that had the DBs. And I would put up my list, and he'd put up his list in front of the president, the head coach, sometimes the owner, and the defensive coordinator to see what kind of work I'd done. It was mind-boggling to think how much time we put in. And then I was hoping like crazy that my list would match his. They were pretty close. I was only in that coaching position for 2 years before I went back to college. But during that period of time, I realized how much time, money, energy, and devotion goes into that draft. It's the blood, it's the lifeblood of every team is getting it right. And some teams do it great, and some teams are just average.
So when you see teams in the NFL that traditionally do very well in the draft and other teams that traditionally kind of whiff from year to year, I mean, does that come down to scouts? Does it come down to resources? I imagine it's probably a combination of everything, but it just seems like there are some teams that always, year in and year out, seem to get it right, and then others that seem to struggle.
Scotty, I can only speak from my experience with the 49ers, but those items that you mentioned, resources, yep, scouting, yep, but there's a couple other factors that I think are important, and I think this goes from sport to sport. And one of them is this buzzword, this byword that everybody uses to define greatness, and that's culture. And so I know with the 49ers that when we had a list of the people that we wanted to draft, and we literally had a list of about 200 in order that we had put, like, this is who we want to draft. Each one of those players had been vetted to make sure that if we picked them, they would know how to do it the 49er way. And you're talking about a lot of effort. It's just like in recruiting, Tim. You can look at a kid that has great stats and looks good on film, and then you go to the school. In our particular case, you'd go to the college, and you start talking to people about the kid. And it depends on how far you dig to find out how much you need to know. But in college, in pro ball, that's a huge investment, but it's not just the money you invest, it's the future of that organization. So you've got to get it right with the fit. And I think that, Scotty, to answer your question, you can't win the Kentucky Derby on a mule. You have to have great players. But those great players that fit, we had a couple of kids that we drafted, not to be named, just a couple. We didn't miss very many. That when we got them there, it took a year. Within a year, you knew they weren't going to really – they were pretty good players. We'd get some trade for them, but they weren't going to be great for the future development of our team.
What was you mentioned the culture and the buzzword. I'm just curious, what were the non-negotiables when you were with the Niners in terms of, guys really talented, but what was the non-negotiables for the culture?
Well, I mean, I think so much of it is not so the things that you can't do, it's the things that you do. And so, I think part of it would be, I'll give you an example, Ronnie Lott. Ronnie set the tone for playing hurt. And that's not something that people are very comfortable talking about. It's not like the 49ers said, hey, you got to play. It was like we had players that would play when they were nicked up. And our head coach, Bill Walsh, and George Seifert, at the end of that's my last year, and then who I coached for, they were very grateful, and the team understood that to be great, you're not going to be able to play every game at 100%. Now, if you look right now, Tim, you look at professional athletes in all sports, they get a lot of days off. They don't play when they're hurt much because they're scared about what it's going to do for the future. Those were not concerns in those days. It was like the strength of the team was we're playing for each other. We're laying it out there. If I'm a little nicked up, we're going to go. Now, look, we had doctors. We had trainers. We made really good decisions as coaches. We kept people out when we had to, but we had players on our team that were not going to take a day off. If they were hurt, they'd be out. If they were sore or had some pain, then they're probably going to play. In our organization, we had kids that didn't want to practice or play when they're nicked. They weren't going to last very long.
All right, so before we get back into it, though, I got to have you, speaking of guys playing hurt, can you address the urban legend? Did Ronnie Lott really lop off the top of his finger to keep playing?
It's not an urban legend, it's truth. Now, you stretched it. You stretched it a little bit, Scott.
Okay.
Everybody does, man. You got to take it another little bit.
He didn't cut the finger off himself, but he had to sum it up, he had a very serious injury, and the option was take a lot of time off and miss the season or have a surgery where they amputate the tip of your finger. That's an example, Scotty, of a player on our team, the best player on our team, saying, you know what, I am the captain of our team. I'm the leader of our team. I'm the heartbeat of our team. I've made all the money. I'm all pro. I've got everything I've already accomplished. We've won a championship. But you know what? I play football. I play football for my team. I'm not going to take a seat. So when we watched him take that action and sacrifice his finger, for the rest of the team, you can't have like a little strain and feel like, I don't feel good today. I think I'm going to miss practice. That didn't happen. You did not see players missing practice. You see someone limp out there in their street clothes and, you just put out your little pinky, and that means Ronnie cut off his finger. Get out here.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
Yeah, you're like, you know what? My hamstring feels a little sore. And Ronnie's over there, you know what? I would like to feel my finger, but I can't because I kept playing. So get your butt out back there on the field.
In regards to Ronnie Lott,
that's what it's all about, baby.
In regards to Ronnie Lott, I was at BYU. We had a recruiting visit. I was down on the field running around doing something or other, and around a bend, I hear my name. I turn around, and Tom's standing there with Ronnie Lott at Cougar Stadium. So I got a picture with him and got to meet him. I did not see the damaged pinky, however.
He keeps his hand in his pocket these days.
But as full circle can get, Ronnie Lott's, what do they call it, a Pop Warner coach in California was my uncle.
Oh, my goodness.
Really?
Gracious.
Yeah,
Great,
my Uncle Gary had pictures of it.
connection.
So anyhow, pretty crazy. All comes full circle, Tom.
I'm going to come back to the draft. The 49er way started in 1981, and that was the year that they drafted Ronnie Lott in the first round real early. And they drafted Ronnie. They drafted Eric Wright, a corner in the second round, and Carlton Williamson, a safety in the third round. And that was they had a free agent named Dwight Hicks that came in from Detroit, and they called that group Dwight Hicks and the Hot Licks. And that was the kind of the energy source, the heat source on the defense from the very beginning. To bring in a player like that, and Ronnie Lott played basketball in college at USC. A lot of people don't know that, Tim. But the SC had got a couple players nicked up, and they knew he was a great athlete. So Ronnie played for part of that season, if not one full season, early in his career. That's how good of an athlete he was. But it wasn't about his finger. It was just about this guy loved the ball. He loved his teammates. He was an exceptional player, and he gave everything he had to that organization, and still to this day does. You'd be shocked to hear stories about Ronnie talking with current players, Ronnie talking with management. They love him because he's a part of that organization and will be forever. And that started in '81 with the draft.
Tom Holmoe, former athletic director at BYU, kind enough to join us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, are you kind of glad you're out of the game considering the world that college athletics is in right now?
You know, I'm not glad I'm out of the game. I got out at the right time for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's super complicated right now. And a lot of people, the first question they ask is, do you miss it? And the answer is no. I don't really miss the game. What I miss are the people. And I love the student athletes that we had. And, you know, I went back this year to football games and basketball games. And, you know, it's just because I retired doesn't mean that I'm going to sit in a lawn chair all day. I wanted to go see those guys play and those women play. And it's so fun for me. And I found that I don't have to be the AD to get such enjoyment out of watching spectacular competition from BYU student athletes. And I got it this year.
And I just want to echo, I worked a couple different places, but I was at Utah for a couple of years and I was just, you know, a support staff member, didn't have any kind of meetings or anything to do with the AD. I got the job at BYU. I'll never forget this. And I had probably had the job for about, you know, officially for about 15 hours. And my phone rang and Tom was calling me from Europe. He was in Europe. I don't know if you remember that, Tom, but you called me to welcome me to BYU. And then I kind of sat back and watched how Tom did his thing. And one thing that stood out, and he said people are it. He knew every single student athlete's name every single year on campus.
Wow.
So if he passed them, he knew their name. He talked to them. He made it about the people. And I am so, so glad to have had the opportunity to work with you, Tom. And I know big things are in your future, which we're excited about. But you always just be that football guy to me, man.
Well, Tim, I called you from Europe because you're part of our team, man. And, I mean, look to this day, how many years ago was that? It was a long time ago. And I just am a believer that, you know, life is about connections. It's about having people in your life that you love and that you can be happy with and you can find joy with doing things. And we had a lot of great times. And even though I'm not ADing and you're not coaching there, we're still talking.
We're still connected, my guy. So, hey, I gotta ask too, because Lloyd and I are Raider fans, and we're excited about this first pick. What do you think of Fernando? Does he got the stuff?
Love him.
He's got the stuff.
I love the guy. I mean, when you talk about the fit, you know, he does it. I don't know if he's like the black hole people, you know. from what I've watched and what I know about the Raider organization, that's a rich tradition. Now, they haven't been great lately, but it doesn't take much. It just takes a spark to bring an organization like that knows winning. Hasn't been in a while, but they know how to win. And I love the coach that they got there. They're going to be good. And I think that it starts with a guy like that. Now, picking a quarterback to be your guy with the first pick, there's a ton of pressure on that. And I just like the way he held himself and carried himself through that whole season at Indiana. I don't think there was an interview he did that I saw that he didn't carry himself with great dignity, represented Indiana with incredible pride, and put the attention on his team. He never tried to take it himself. So I see this guy having strength as a player and strength mentally and emotionally, which is going to take to be great in that league.
I know we're keeping you way too long, but that just made me think here. You were probably, I believe you were on that staff, that 94-95 that had Mike Shanahan and Gary Kubiak, correct?
Yes, I was.
How crazy is it that they've got two boys now that are head coaches in the NFL?
I love it, man. I just love it because those were young bucks at the time. Those were like little ball boys running around. And Shanahan was a little bit older, but it's, there's so much of basketball, football, baseball is passing that love for the game on to your children. And for me right now, grandchildren, there's nothing I get more excitement out is watching my grandkids playing lacrosse in Utah. How about that? Football, basketball, a little softball, gymnastics, dance. And we love to pass it on. And I just, when I see their names, I think of their dads. And I think how great of people they were. And I can see how the acorn hasn't fallen far from the tree with those coaches. They're a little edgy. They're sharp. They don't take any guff, but they're intelligent. They connect well, and they're doing exceptionally well.
Awesome. Well, we can't thank you enough. We appreciate it. We know you got a lot of big things coming down the pipeline. Take it easy when those guys make mistakes, because I'm speaking of my history. So, when a guy does something dumb, just make sure they're like, hey, we still love you. You're going to be all right.
For sure.
And if you have access to records, don't check mine.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are great.
You're the best.
I'm excited to be on the show early, and give me a couple years, I'll jump back on.
All right, sounds good. We'll wait our time. It's all good. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
There he is.
Guys.
Tom Holmoe right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.